Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Doug.Show. My name's Doug Cunnington, and today we're going to talk about hiring writers and creating SOPs. And I have my new friend, Kerry Campion. I think I got her name right, right? I got it
Yes, you
right?
did.
Nailed it.
Perfect.
And she's a copywriter and content marketer, and we're going to dig into these details. So, Kerry, how's it going today?
Going well, but we just kind of mentioned as we were having a little chat beforehand, my almost 3-year-old daughter, it's her birthday on Wednesday, is having a meltdown in the background. So there might be some screams in the background. Just know that it is a standard issue toddler tantrum.
That's no problem. It's very authentic here. So it'll just add some background noise and it'll be fun. So
Yeah.
well,
Inspire all the parents. You can do it all. Look, podcast interview, tantrum, like it's fine.
it is, yeah, it's perfect. Well, Carrie, I don't know you that well, so we're going to get to know each other. Can you give just a little intro on your background and what you do now?
Yeah. So I originally kind of started out, I was an English teacher. So I live in Spain. I'm from Ireland, just in case people spend the rest of the show being like, what's that accent? What is that? So I moved to Spain 7 years ago. I started teaching English. And then actually my husband, he is an engineer for a European car company. And he basically got sent to France. So kind of from one day to the next, I was like, oh, I have no work anymore. Like, what? And then I was pregnant, so I thought, okay, well, this is a good time to, do some sort of transition. Um, so I always loved like blogging and stuff, and I'd always, I kind of like done little blogs back when I was, in Ireland and Belfast and stuff. I had like a local news blog called East Belfast Buzz that is still on the internet. It's very embarrassing. If you want to check it out and have a laugh. So I kind of had this idea of starting a blog for English language learners. And I was kind of thinking, yeah, well, I can have a blog. And then it turned into a blog and a podcast. And I was thinking, oh, yeah, I can use that to find students online and maybe do like online courses. But then like I kind of started to enjoy the content marketing and the writing side more than I did like the idea of actually continuing to teach. I was like, maybe I should explore this. So I did like a course on Instagram marketing actually, and they had a guest workshop about copywriting, and I was like, wait, what? This is a thing? Like, what? Because kind of even before that, back in Ireland, the kind of roles I did were like in communications, PR, those types of things, but I never actually heard like copywriting as a thing. Like I had no idea businesses would pay people to like write their websites or produce content. So I was just like, oh my God, I'm going all in on this. Like went crazy, like did all the courses, did all the trainings I could find. And it was good because I was pregnant, I wasn't working at the time. It was just a really good time to just beef up on like my knowledge. And yeah, one thing led to another and I started doing it. I started getting clients from people that I knew, did some stuff for free, getting experience. And yeah, it's snowballed into my agency now, which is called God Save the SERP. Yeah, and here I am. That's what I do now.
Cool. And did you listen to podcasts or read blogs or like what made you get interested after you started the blog and you realized that there were people out there doing copywriting and there were agencies. So yeah, what podcasts or influences did you have out there?
I know the first big one for me was Copy Blogger. They were like the first, kind of, they didn't have courses, but these really good like ebooks that I think they call like they're like legacy ebooks or something now. Like,
Uh-huh.
and I remember just like going through those, like, oh my God, this is amazing. So yeah, and then I just started to like devour everything on Copy Blogger. And then, with their podcast and stuff as well, their blog. And then Copy Hackers also. Copy Hackers, like the OGs of copywriting. So those courses are, yeah, basically your degree in copywriting comes from Copy Hackers. That's like, yeah. So those are really the probably the most important ones. And then I got introduced to, I was looking up copywriting coaches, and that's where I discovered my amazing coach. She, like, honestly, without her, I would not have doing what I was doing whatsoever. Belinda Weaver from Copyright Matters, and she had a podcast called the Hot Copy Podcast that she did with Kate Toon. And again, I just went to town on that, and I was like, "Which has a membership? I want that." And then, yeah, that was it. Yeah, those are like the original influences.
Got it. And then did she help you more on the actual copywriting side or like the business side of copywriting, or both?
The business side, yeah. So I would say like the training for copywriting came more from copy hackers, and then it was like, okay, great. Well, how do I make this into something? Like, how do I become a freelancer? How do I invoice? What do I like? I just no idea. Especially because it was online, and I was like really a bit of a hermit. I didn't have Instagram, I didn't have Facebook, I didn't have LinkedIn. Like, I was so anti social media, so it was uncomfortable for me to be like, oh, now I have to like get this to try to get clients. And yeah, so Belinda really helped with the business side of things to get me started, and I was there, in that membership for like 2 years. It's really fantastic. And then Copy Hackers was really like the core sort of training. And then I kind of got more into SEO, and that's where I discovered, I don't know if you've heard of him, Brandon Hufford from SEO for the Rest of Us.
No, that SEO for the Rest of Us sounds familiar, but no, I don't know Brandon.
Yeah. So he was kind of like probably the first person who made SEO like not snooty. Like SEO as an industry is super snooty. It's very like gatekeepy. People are just, it's like the snobbiest part of digital marketing, I think. So yeah, he was like the first person I discovered who made it like down to earth, understandable, and just like not snooty. And that kind of got me started on that path.
Interesting. And I wonder if it's not so much snooty as it's like social awkwardness.
Could also be that, yeah. And then a lot of them don't even see themselves as like in the digital marketing. They would almost class themselves more with like, I don't know, like the developers or something. There's like there's a lot of them who are like, ew, no, we're not like in the marketing. Like, we're not those people. No.
But they're not. Yeah, but they're like not good enough to be developers. I'm just trying to piss them off, I guess. I'm just kidding all the SEOs out there. Okay. All right. So I lost my train of thought a little bit, and I don't know where we're going with this, but I remember that you mentioned you were not on social media so much, not on Instagram or LinkedIn, which I think you're active in both currently, right? Pretty active. And yeah. So why did you eventually start? Any rocky times like getting active on social media?
Oh God, so much. Like whenever I first started using Instagram was like OG Instagram, like moody emo photos with like a filter, like that's what Instagram was when I'd stopped using it. And so I still kind of like thought that was the case when I started it up again, when I was still doing my English teaching business. So I'd have like quote cards, and I don't know, I was trying to be like inspirational, or I don't know what I was doing, but it was not the same Instagram that I had left like 4 or 5 years before. So that was such a shock to see how completely it had changed after like the Facebook acquisition. I was like, oh wow, I don't know what I'm doing on this whatsoever. And I got following someone on YouTube. Her name is Vanessa. I'm gonna say it not with my Belfast accent because no one will understand it. Vanessa Lau, Lau. Who's like the Instagram queen. And yeah, I learned a lot from her, even took her program. And that really helped kind of demystify Instagram and sort of help me like producing content. And now like, I'm on stories all the time. I do a lot of video content now. I'm on reels and stuff. But before I was like, I just had no idea. It had changed so much and I just had no idea how to use it. I really didn't.
Okay. You feel like you have the hang of it now?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of annoying because I still feel like Instagram's throttled my reach because I switched like from being this English language page to like an SEO copywriting page. And I think they've never fully understood that change. They're kind of like still confused because I used to get like a pretty steady stream of followers. And then kind of like with the niche switch, I expected like a dip and, people to leave and things like that. But I never really recovered that same rhythm. But I get like a lot of, engagement in like the DMs. I've made great relationships on Instagram. So now I try not to worry too much about like the follower count. Like they do come in kind of like steadily, mostly because like, I don't know, things like in my email signature, there's a link to go follow on Instagram. And a lot of my blog posts, I'll embed a post from Instagram. So there's like a lot of kind of cross pollination there. And with Reels, that helps also for like getting reach to new people who don't know you. But yeah, I feel like, now that I've stuck it out, which is really the term there, like stuck it out. I definitely feel like I've got a handle on it now of like what to produce, who I'm producing it for. I don't really use Instagram to find my clients anymore. It was great whenever I worked with coaches and maybe service providers. I don't really serve that market anymore for my client work. So I use it mostly to create relationships with other copywriters, because I also have a community for copywriters and a SEO copywriting course. So yeah, kind of like understanding who you're targeting as well. If you're doing like, I don't know, B2B SaaS, Instagram's probably not the best platform to be on. But for that kind of more B2C stuff, if you're doing coaches, that sort of thing, it's fantastic. It's really great relationship building tool.
Perfect. So LinkedIn, you also spent time on, and you could talk about how you got involved there. And then you mentioned earlier, before we started recording, that you had a post kind of go viral. And then can you talk about that and, what you learned from that specific post?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, I've really only got started with it recently. I resisted it for the longest time just because I really don't love it as a platform. I love Twitter. Twitter's probably my favorite one, and just watching the chaos with Elon Musk at the moment is just really entertaining, as it is terrifying. But what can you do? But I decided to give LinkedIn a chance because that's like the only social network my husband uses as well. He was like, "Yeah, you should use LinkedIn. Like, it's better. It's more work focused. Blah 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 blah." So I said, "Okay, whatever." I had like lots of connection requests and stuff, so it's been really easy to grow a following there, I find. But my posts weren't getting the most engagement because I was still like, I don't know what works yet. So you're always kind of testing new content, new concepts to see what works. But one day I had a post just take off, and yeah, it was like a hot take sort of thing, which I mean, I guess now I've kind of like done a bit more digging. I think those things do work on LinkedIn, the kind of like hot takes or whatever works on Twitter as well. But I had no idea at the time. I was just kind of writing something quite honest, and it really took off. So the post was actually about basically if you're hiring a content writer, like I said, this is a hard pill to swallow. And then I sort of explained where a lot of companies, where a lot of business owners kind of go wrong when hiring a content writer, because just over the years, like I've seen it, and clearly like writers felt very strongly about this because it was like 14,000 impressions, 28 reposts, 50 comments, like 256 reactions, which that's crazy numbers for me. It's usually like 3 people, and probably one of them is my husband giving it a like, so yeah, essentially it was. I mean, no writer is ever going to understand your niche, service, audience, or product quite as well as you do. So like that's like the sort of starting point. And like to expect them to do that really isn't fair, especially because a lot of the time it's like you hire a writer and you just give them ideas for posts every month or, every week without any kind of like guidance or any type of like subject matter expertise that they can kind of rely on. Now, having said that, writers should also kind of take charge of that and have their own briefing process as well. But there's give and take, and a lot of writers are very frustrated because clients are just kind of like, okay, yeah, here's the brief, and it's like, here's the keyword, here's how many words, and a couple of subheads, and then they're shocked when they feel like they have to edit it. So yeah, that was essentially what the post was about. So like, are you making it easy for the writer to understand your unique point of view on a topic? That's a really big one, because one of the things that people who hire writers complain about is like, oh, it feels a bit generic. It feels a bit, and I'm like, okay, well, unless you're hiring a writer who's very specialized in that niche, they need to lean on you for those like strong opinions and arguments and things like that. Again, the writer can do a better briefing process, but you can also help them out, right? Because maybe even someone who has a lot of experience in your niche and writes in it, they might not see it quite the same as you do, right? Um, so yeah, are you just like firing topic suggestions at them left and right and expecting them to just come up with a great post in 2 or 3 days? And are you able to provide them with great resources as well? Because if you know your industry, you know your niche, you know who are like the people who you should be listening to, the people who create great content on a certain subject. A writer who isn't as involved in your industry as you are is going to struggle with that. So it was basically just about making it easier for writers. And yeah, it just took off. So clearly, like, it was very indicative that, like, yeah, there's a problem here because writers seem to be very sick of that kind of happening.
Got it. Cool. Well, that tees us up perfectly to get into sort of the meaty part, the actionable stuff. So we're going to talk about SOPs and content briefs, actually, and then repurposing content. So those are like 3 signposts that we're going to be looking for. Before we get into that, can you talk about your agency? Like, what do you have going on? How many people have you hired? Why do you know about any of this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, so we're kind of in a transition at the moment. This is probably like one of the first times I've used agency rather than just like me,
Right.
because we're just at that stage now where I literally just had a meeting with my ops manager, and he was very excited because he got to create a new macro on Excel to do this, and that's his jam. So I was like, we are just slammed lately. I was like, I feel like I just can't breathe. Like, what's going on here? So he basically built out a macro on Excel to kind of say what our workload is per sort of week, per day, etc., to like reach our deadlines. And it was like, whoa, okay, yeah, I'm working so much, like way more than what I would have said. So we are now kind of bringing in other writers, and we've been doing that a little bit for a while for some other things. And yeah, so it's kind of from my experience of hiring. Like, I hired a video editor recently, but before I hired him, I created, like, it took me. I mean, fair enough. This is kind of my marketing's my thing, but I put together like a brand guide. I was like, these are the fonts we use. These are the colors. I did like a little mood board. Our branding is very like kind of punk rock. It was like Rage Against the Machine pictures and stuff, and all those kind of things. I gave him examples of videos that I really like. I would like to kind of imitate that style. When we make pop culture references, these are the shows and artists that we usually reference. Just so like he actually knew what I was sort of expecting. Because I know what it's like on the receiving end to sort of have nothing and have to spend, I would spend quite a while like briefing a client and trying to get these different pieces together. So yeah, from my experience of just hiring, of being on the end of being hired, and also just from managing a community of writers, a lot of people come in and be like, oh, the client says like the copy doesn't sound like them. What should I do? And I'm like, well, do they have a brand voice guide? No. You could write one for them,
Okay.
So yeah, it just kind of comes from those experiences. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So why are SOPs important? I think you implicitly sort of explained a little bit there, but yeah, why are SOPs so important? And can you define them in this context in case someone doesn't know what they are?
Yeah. So, another thing I mentioned is actually kind of building these out for clients, because sometimes with clients, I'm doing maybe the content strategy, but not the writing. So I'm having to like coordinate that. So SOP, standard operating procedure. So it's essentially like what's our content production process? What is the workflow? What is the step-by-step that leads to a finished piece of content getting published and us, reaching our goals, or, having a review process for why we didn't. But essentially it's that content production process. I feel like a lot of business owners, and it's normal as well, something sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, right? They just kind of think, oh, I'll just like hire a writer to do 4 posts a month. Okay, but do you have a content marketing strategy already mapped out? As in, do you know how often you should be publishing? Do you have you worked with like an SEO or a content marketer to come up with topics? What are those based on? Are they purely SEO? Is it answering customers' questions? Is it content for your existing customers as well as bringing in new ones? You know, it's a lot of things to consider before you just kind of start producing content. Kind of lost my train of thought there. Yeah. So do you actually have a strategy in place first? That's like the biggest mistake that I see people, business owners create, because they think writers will just come up with topics. And I'm like, most writers aren't content marketers and they don't want to be, and expecting them to be isn't fair. So they can kind of help you generate ideas, or maybe you have an idea and they'll flesh it out for you. But that's probably not the best way to reach your content marketing goals. So that's the first step. Then it's, okay, well, how long does it take that writer to produce those pieces of content? Because, one piece of content on average might take me maybe about 7 hours, like just, to produce the first draft. That's just one post. So what does it look like from, if you want to produce 4, well, how are they going to get to you? So how long does it take? What's the revision process? That's really important as well. You're not just going to send the first version and then, okay, nailed it, boom, put it up on WordPress or whatever. Usually there's some tweaking to be involved. So what's that revision process like? How does that then impact your publishing goals? Who is reviewing it? Who's uploading the content? What are you doing with the content afterwards? What's your distribution? So yeah, essentially an SOP is trying to answer that and kind of create, okay, first we do this person takes care of that, et cetera, until it's complete, really.
Got it. And so my background is in project management. So really like SOPs in repeating things, having templates, continuous improvement, like fits perfectly with this. And it's, I did it for my corporate job. So it was kind of second nature at some point. Like, of course you would have a template. Like, why would you redo the same work over and over again for each person? It's so inefficient, and you make the same mistakes over and over again instead of improving.
And over again. And then like, where is this housed? Like, for instance, we use ClickUp. I use ClickUp to organize everything. Everyone has their tasks assigned and they tick it off as they go. But if you don't have that, well, how are you managing that? It's like that. How are you project managing that if there's no central place for you to see, okay, where is this piece of content at? When's the next one coming? What's the due date? If not, it just becomes this just mayhem.
Yeah, huge mess. Well, so we're hearing this, right? Let's say someone's fairly new, they haven't done this before. Like, when should someone try to create SOPs? Because, I can see an issue, right? If someone is trying to get their business off the ground, or they have a new site or something like that, and they're like, all right, I have to do SOPs. Kerry said it's important, but they don't know what the fuck they're doing, right? So if they try to do it too soon, they're going to make some mistakes. So when should someone do SOPs?
So I always say, like, I don't like outsourcing something I haven't done myself. And that's a helpful answer, because I know not everyone's a writer. But I mean, especially if you're looking to produce any kind of content-based business, I feel like you should have some experience actually creating content. And just part of that is literally just documenting what you do. Like, every single step, like, it might seem super small and insignificant, but just like documenting exactly what you're doing, and then doing it again, and then kind of reviewing and like, okay, well, actually, I can automate this, or I can put that, in ClickUp, and I can do that as a recurring task. So I'm not creating a new task from scratch every time. So I would say just kind of doing it yourself a few times, just so you gain an appreciation for what's actually being done. And so if you do start to outsource, you can kind of give people like a roadmap, like, okay, this is how we usually do it. And, you at least have some sort of skeleton SOP. And then as well, like, I mean, leaning on a good writer as well, asking them what their process is. Like, okay, well, what do you need from me? Like, that's a really important question to ask in kickoff calls, discovery calls. What do you need from me to do your job, right? So they might say, oh, well, I need a brief. And then you're like, oh, shit, I need to make a brief. Okay, who do I talk to about making briefs? What do I do there, So kind of just being prepared. So I would say do it yourself, document everything that you're doing. do it a few times, and then just review what can I, be more efficient in? Can I automate anything, etc. And then when you are beginning to talk to people, ask them what their process is and what they need from you to be able to do their work. So I would say that's really the starting point. There's a lot of things like I do in my business where I'm like, I'm doing this for the first time. I'm just going to write everything that I'm doing and then just go back and see like
right.
what was a stupid amount of time. What did I estimate wrong? Because I try to like estimate how long things will take as well. And then I kind of look at that with the actual data that I track for my, time tracking. And I'm like, oh, wow, that was 3 times longer than I thought it was.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Anything else on SOPs, creating them, other considerations?
I think one thing people forget is kind of how much back and forth there actually is. I think we kind of think of it as like this linear thing where it just goes boop, 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 boop. But actually, I kind of prefer mapping them out as like a swim lane. So if people don't know what that is, it's like little horizontal, like if you imagine like you're getting like a bird's eye view of a swimming pool, like the little lanes, that's essentially it. So I would have like Kerry, Megan, Natalie, and then I'm just putting like little circles or squares or whatever with like, okay, creates brief, Kerry. Then the arrow goes to say Natalie. Natalie writes the content. Little arrow goes from Natalie to Ben, who's the client who has to then review it, or whoever's on Ben's team. So just kind of like mapping it out like that, those little arrows, because that also gives you like an appreciation for, oh wow, yeah, there's more back and forth in this than I thought. And then as well, that can help you think too, okay, well, do I have to do this? Or maybe I can have, if you have a co-founder or if you have like a VA or something, or do you have anyone else on your team who might be able to take some of this stuff off, etc. So just kind of like getting an appreciation as well of who's involved and when. Because whenever you do those little swim lanes, it's like, wow, there's like a lot of arrows going back and forth here.
Perfect. Yep. And people can, just Google and see a swim lane diagram to understand.
Yeah, ClickUp has a really good article on it. That's actually where I got the idea. I just love ClickUp and everything they do. And they should just be paying me at this point because all I do is just like talk them up. But I came across an article on ClickUp, which was about using swim lanes to, start building out SOPs or something like that. And I went into ClickUp, literally on the list I used with one of my clients. And they have like a little whiteboard feature. It was so ghetto. It was just like me, like, like in Microsoft Paint, just like drawing lines and it's like using their little like squares and literally like hand drawing the little arrows between the different people. But it worked, and then I was like, okay, now we're going to translate that into tasks and assign the tasks to the people involved. But yeah, mine is really funny. I do like to show people a picture of it because it's so ghetto, but it worked. Doesn't need to be fancy. Doesn't need to be fancy.
And what's ClickUp for people that haven't used it before?
Oh yes, yeah. Thanks for that. I always talk about it like everyone's aware of this. I can't remember life before it, so I just take it for granted. ClickUp is a project management software. So if you're familiar with maybe Asana or Trello, it's similar, but it's better. What I like about it is it's just kind of more organized, I think, than Asana and stuff, more because it has like a hierarchy structure. So we have like spaces, which is kind of like a department. So we have a space like marketing or a space sales. Then you kind of have folders and lists with specific kind of projects and stuff. So yeah, and it integrates with everything. Like I have, for instance, a list for a client, and then I have like an embed view where I can embed like the spreadsheet where, all their keywords and content strategy stuff is, and I have it directly there. It's like, there's a doc view as well, which is basically like having Notion, but in the actual project management system. I would say it's kind of like if Notion and Asana had a baby, it might be ClickUp.
Right. Which funny thing. So even though with my project management background, that was a few years ago, I have never used ClickUp. It's fairly new, right? It's just a few years old, right?
Fairly new, yeah. I don't know how old it is, but I think it's only maybe about 4 years old or something. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it's older than that, but
seems right.
Okay. New kid on the block.
And
for
then,
sure.
yeah, so I've never used ClickUp, and Notion I've never used either. So like I'm in a spot where I'm trying not to be as busy, and like I use Trello. Typically, I have a Trello board up there,
Yeah.
and it's doing the job, and I'm like I don't have any problems with it. So I'm just like, all right, we'll keep it simple. No need to
Yeah.
learn new things. But do you use Notion as well?
I don't kind of ClickUp. It
Does
just
it?
kind of took away the need for it. I was just, and again, like you said, I didn't want to like add a new thing to my tech stack. I was like, okay, like ClickUp pretty much just integrates with everything, and it already has like docs built into it that I can kind of use as like databases and stuff. So yeah, I was like, no, if I can just get everything in one place,
Right.
perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Even if, and I'm not saying ClickUp is lacking anywhere, but sometimes just having the convenience in a simpler tech stack and not having to learn a new thing.
Yeah.
Because some people, I mean, like Notion's a lifestyle or something. Like I don't even know what it does.
I know. It is so true. Like, what is this? Like, I mean, I bang on about how much I love ClickUp, but it's
Yeah.
not a lifestyle. But like, that is so true. That is so accurate.
Yeah. And I'm sure I'm the same way with something, but I don't know. So, okay, cool. So people could check out ClickUp if they are looking for a new solution. Maybe it can, work for them.
Yeah, it's also really cheap, which is great. Like, it's cheaper than Asana and Trello. So if you do need to maybe add people or whatever, or even the free plan though is fine for most people. Like, you really
Cool.
don't need anything else.
All right, let's plow ahead to content briefs. So you talked about it in a couple of examples earlier. So what are
Yeah.
content briefs, and how can you create really good ones that are great for the writers?
Yeah. So the first thing is, don't just throw topics at your writers. Sometimes it feels like you're just kind of getting hit with content idea bombs. So generally speaking, if you can hire a content marketer or an SEO before hiring a writer, better, because they can essentially build this out for you and you don't have to worry about it. But essentially, I mean, for me, what a good content brief is apart from the basics, like what keyword are we targeting, word length, a little bit of an overview on why you're creating this piece of content. Okay, like what's the sort of goals, more or less, educate our audience about XYZ, why is it important, etc. Generally speaking, what you kind of want as well is what subheadings they should be including in that. You can use a tool like Phrase. That's Phrase, Frase. Phrase. I think it's Phrase.io. Yeah, which can basically help you build out content briefs for SEO purposes by looking at top ranking articles, see what Google's rewarding, and help you kind of come up with ideas of what you should be including in your subheadings, FAQs. They take that from things like Reddit, Quora. People also ask. So it's a really great tool for finding this information. But yeah, essentially you want to be including subheads, FAQs, just like the questions. You don't have to actually answer them, just more or less what questions they should be answering. Not required, but handy if you can kind of create, the fancy word is like semantic entities or whatever, but just in a more down-to-earth way. It's just like related keywords that they should be including in the content. So, if you're talking about, I don't know, project management, well, it's probably quite natural. You're also going to say things like Kanban or swim lanes, or, you're going to talk about these other topics. So that can just kind of help guide the writer as well when it comes to like optimizing for SEO. It's like, okay, well, I need to make sure I'm kind of talking about this as well, just essentially to make sure that the article is as relevant as possible to the keyword that it's targeting. Any internal links that you would like linked to. So you can kind of create like a spreadsheet. I like to do this. It's like with internal linking clusters. So for instance, like I'm working with one client at the moment in the language learning industry, and I'm like, okay, all of her articles about French are here. All the ones about Spanish are here, Korean, etc. So I kind of know, like, if she's got an article about learning Korean, I'm like, okay, add these internal links because they're not there at the moment. So that can be really handy as well. Any links to great resources that you think would help a writer understand the topic better. And then what is always missing from any type of brief, and it can be like 10 minutes long, just like a little Loom video, like record yourself just talking about the topic. Again, that's like where your unique point of view is going to come in, and the writer can leverage that in the content. Like, say you wanted a writer to write a piece of content about the importance of understanding equity splits in startups, let's say. So a really good example there, I think it was from startups.com, was the guy who wrote the post was saying, to give you an idea of how important this is, I once paid a web designer equity in my company, and every single year I have to write her a check for $35,000 for a shitty website she built like 10 years ago. Can you imagine how much that hurts?
Holy cow.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, essentially like having that sort of Loom video, like explaining, why is this important? Why do I think this topic's important? Any things that piss you off about how people approach this topic? Yeah, because those little like tidbits, those little, pieces of information can really make a piece of content super interesting. Like I remembered that, like, that $35,000 check every month or every year. And I was like, that was a really great, like, piece, like a little nugget there. So adding things like that can really bring your content to life, and it can just help the writer do that.
Okay. And how long should a content brief be? And you could give a range, I'm sure it varies, but yeah, the text part, aside from the video that you just mentioned.
I mean, I think it's important that it's a brief and not a long, right. Even though I did just kind of describe a lot of things, but text-wise, that's not really that much, because you also don't want to like dictate too much to the writer, because you're trusting them to you're giving them the skeleton and just giving them like a structure, and then trusting them with the rest. Like they would know what to put in an intro and a conclusion. If you have like under a subhead, maybe you can write like a sentence or two about what they should cover, but more or less I try to make that part as bare as possible, because that's like, okay, I'm trusting the writer to do their job here. I'm just giving them the structure and some pointers, but essentially, yeah, I as brief as possible. I really have like a word count in mind. I've just say try not to like elaborate too much and say like, in this part, make sure you talk about blah, blah, blah. Try to just trust them to do their job.
Got it. So one page is probably sufficient most of the time. Like it should almost never be longer than a one pager.
Yeah, that's probably solid. Yeah, like a page and a quarter, Okay. But yeah, definitely like around a page. Yeah, especially if you're having like a little Loom video, because for me that's more important than anything. It's that subject matter expertise that you can essentially just give to the writer with your own experience by giving them like a brief overview of the topic and what you think about it and what pisses you off about it and all that sort of stuff.
Got it. Okay. And then do you happen to have like any kind of results to share, like before using content briefs or after? I don't know if there's any kind of valid thing, but it'd be great if you had any examples.
No, I really don't, unfortunately. Okay. Okay. Yeah, no, it's always just been kind of qualitative, like, right, like, oh yeah, this is great, thank you, that made it so much easier. It's that kind of stuff rather than we were ranking here, and after recent content briefs, we shot up. I don't really have anything like that, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think it's almost like if you're as a writer, if you're not getting content briefs, and you have to spend all this time like trying to do research, and you are guessing your best. Yeah.
And it just adds more time as well. Like you're always going to spend an X amount of time doing research, of course. Like maybe as well, one thing I like to do is request maybe quotes or things from other subject matter experts, which is great because if you're not direct competitors, obviously, but if you can get a quote from, say, someone who's a bit of an influencer in that sort of niche, and then you share the article with them. You've like linked to their site. You can say, oh, thank you so much. Included your contribution. I really appreciate it. Then they're going to share it with their audience as well. So that's also a really nice thing to leverage if you're writing content, trying to get other opinions involved and things like that.
Okay. Anything else for content briefs before we move on to repurposing content?
I don't think so. No, I think just, yeah, really it's about providing structure, providing that subject matter expertise that will really, you'll notice a difference, because you can say that it's your opinions, not maybe what they're getting from Google and having to kind of guess, like, maybe this is what he agrees with. I don't know.
Right.
Giving them the skeleton, giving them subject matter expertise, and then stepping back and letting them do their job at that point.
Perfect. Okay, let's talk about repurposing content. And yeah, I'll just kind of open up, like, what's repurposing content? How have you seen it done effectively?
Yeah, so I mean, repurposing content is essentially, you have usually a piece of longer form content, say it's a YouTube video, say it's a podcast, say it's a blog post, and you essentially cut it up and turn it into little mini bite-sized versions of that content. Not always. I mean, you could, for instance, with a podcast episode, then write a blog post that goes with it, etc. But generally speaking, it's getting more mileage from your content, resharing it on different platforms, taking, certain sections and hooks and ideas out of it and using it across different platforms and in different formats.
Okay, perfect. So can you tell us, how to do this? And you could just pick an example going from, one format to another.
Yeah. So, I mean, the important thing to know is that it's not just a case of like copying and pasting. It's like, oh, I have a blog post. Okay, I'm going to take this bullet point and turn it into an Instagram image or something. You need to create like little pieces of content in their own right. So that might be finding a hook that works in one platform, but might not work so well in another. So for instance, like the LinkedIn, like the hot takes, like, yeah, that that apparently works really well. On Twitter as well. People are just angry on those platforms. I don't know if that's what it is. People on Instagram are a bit more like chill and happy, and yeah. I don't know. So yeah, like finding those sort of hooks. And then also like you can create series with repurposing, because a lot of times it's hard to just like, you don't want to just pick out like one thing and, like one quote and turn that into like one post that has no relation to anything else. A really nice way to actually build engagement when you're repurposing is to create like a series. So for instance, I can't remember who did this really well, and I was like stealing this because they did it in their newsletters. And I would like really look forward to the next newsletter. I was like, oh, this is so good. I'm making sure I steal this. So say like you've written a post about something, and you send like a newsletter. You introduce the topic. Say you introduce like the problem that, not having this solution creates. And then sort of say like, come back tomorrow and I'm going to tell you how to fix this problem. So you're identifying with their problem. You're showing like, yeah, I know this is a nightmare, blah, 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 blah. But what if, you could say, and then you introduce like the result that they want. Come back tomorrow and then I'll share it with you. You give them like one of the ways to achieve that result, and then say, okay, and the rest is in this blog post. So that's way more likely to send people to your post than just sending out an email being like, hey, I created this post today. It's about this. Go check it out. You're creating that anticipation. You're, helping people kind of want the results and the solution. Mm-hmm. And that was actually something that I leveraged on that viral post on LinkedIn. Because I kind of went on like the bit of the rant about how to hire content writers and sort of why you're not getting the results that you want. And then I sort of say, well, come back tomorrow and I'll show you, what you should be doing to fix it. And it really did work. Like, because I kind of thought, okay, I'll get engagement on this one post and then the rest will just go to hell. But no, like the two other posts that I created in that little 3-part series, they all got way higher engagement than usual. And I had people commenting, being like, oh, can't wait for it tomorrow. I can't wait, for the next one, which, was great. That's exactly what you want. So yeah, I mean, I was like sort of long walk for a short drink of water. But for instance, if you've got a blog post, creating like mini videos, I've done this with clients. I've like, okay, we've got this in our ebook. Literally take this part of the ebook. That's your script. Okay, so make a video where you're talking about that. He's literally read it almost verbatim. And then we've repurposed that into videos for LinkedIn. If you've got a podcast, if you use something like Buzzsprout, they can create little sound bites from episodes. It says like 30-second episodes. And it's a video with like a little, what's the wave bar?
Yeah. Like the audiogram. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, exactly. Little audiograms that you can repost to Instagram. And that's, you're giving people a taste of the content that's going to make them want the main piece of content. There's so many ways to do it. It does take effort. People, I think, make it sound very easy. Like, oh, you do one piece of content and you can get like 30 pieces of content, but it's still a lot of work.
Right. And I was going to say, like, for this podcast and YouTube channel, like when I first started the podcast, I went back to the blog archive and realized, these blog posts were good. I could really just repurpose it. And kind of like you're saying, I mean, I wouldn't, read it verbatim, but I was like, the outline's already there. I could just, move forward with
takes
this.
me a lot of effort. Yeah. It's like me. I had all these like blog posts and I was sitting there going, oh, I need to send 12 reels to my editor. I don't know what to do. And I was like, wait, I've got like all this backlog of content that I could so I'm just, okay, there's my idea. Yeah. I mean, I would just, okay, I'm going to take this concept, turn it into a 1-minute video. Boom, done. Here's the blog post to get more.
Right.
And, and I would check my stats afterwards, and particularly on Twitter. Twitter's the best at driving people back to the site. Instagram's probably the worst. But I'd like to think of it as well, like when you're repurposing, yes, I want to send people back to the original piece of content normally, but it's also about relationship building. If they only see that 1-minute video and they get value from it, well, that's good enough for me, and I have to just content myself with that.
Yep. And one thing that I don't think I've made too many mistakes with this because I just stopped doing it, but it is important to have like the native format of like whatever it is. So different audiences, like you said, so LinkedIn versus Instagram is different, but then like there's the format, right? So sometimes it's vertical, sometimes it's square. And, if you just try to, rip a YouTube video, the formatting is going to be off and you have to edit it differently to make it, quote, more native for whatever the platform is. So any observations there?
I mean, from my video editor, because I was having to like, do you know how difficult it is to record vertically with like a DSLR? I was like, oh my God, this is awful. I was like, I think it took me 2 hours to record 12 minutes of footage. It was ridiculous because the footage kept coming up upside down. The lighting was off. I wanted to just blow my brains out by the end of it. But I sort of said, okay, I'm going to send it horizontal because this is not working. And he was like, oh, okay, we'll see what we can do. And I was like, okay, he's going to kill me. But because I had seen people like repurpose YouTube videos on Instagram Reels, and they do like the little blurry background or whatever from where it's clearly just like, not in the format it's supposed to be. And I thought, oh, that looks fine. He was like, yeah, but the problem is like, look how much I have to zoom up in your face to like make it even that. And I was like, okay, I'll record it vertically, fine. And I eventually, the setup was ridiculous. It was stacked on books and all sorts. The camera was, not a professional setup at all.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll have to show you my little setup here. I don't record any vertical, but I could just like turn I have a ball head tripod, so I could just like turn it vertical.
This is why because I was like, I'm going to break my camera trying to do that because it's just not stable at all.
I don't even know what you had to do. Yeah, you had to like set it in a pillow and like strap it down or something.
Yeah, it was. I even do have a tripod, but it was just, it can't really bear the weight of my camera either. So I'm just like, oh God, it was not fun for me. It was not fun for me.
Okay. Any other tips on repurposing content?
Yeah. So one thing I like to do with my clients is we create like a kind of document once a piece of content is published. We just kind of come up with that. We come up with copy for email promotion. We come up with copy for social media posts. That's pretty much it. That's all the type of copy there is. But yeah, it might be like a LinkedIn article from like one part of it. So yeah, essentially if you kind of have like a backlog as well as some articles and you're sort of like, oh God, I don't want to post on social media. Like literally go through it and just see like, okay, I'm going to have a section in a Google Doc for like Instagram captions or LinkedIn posts or Twitter threads, and just like start pulling it from there. You'll have to edit it a little bit because like we said, you don't just pull it sort of verbatim for different platforms, but you've got a pretty good head start. I think it takes me about maybe 2.5 hours every time I look at a post and sort of come up with captions and things from it. But some people are sitting on so much content and they're like, what do I post on social media? I just don't know. And you're like, haven't you got like 30 blog posts in there? Like, just go back, look at them, and just have a document for each one and schedule it all out on, later. Especially LinkedIn's particularly easy because, with Instagram, you need an image or a video. But Twitter and LinkedIn, it can just be text, So yeah, definitely if you have like some backlog already of articles, like just start creating those little docs and just creating content out of it.
Perfect. All right. Well, I think we covered everything in a broad sense. Is there anything else you want to share before we tell people where they could find you?
I don't think so.
Perfect.
No. One thing actually. Sorry. One thing is, so I've been doing content audits for a couple of clients lately, and one thing that really breaks my heart is when they have a really good piece of content, but it's just not being discovered because it's not SEO content, right? So it's just not getting any organic traffic. But it's usually quite like, it's important content. It's just not SEO. So with those types of content, make sure that they don't just get lost in your blog. Like I would set reminders, so say like, for instance, they have one which is like, it was like Christmas gifts for language lovers. And I'm like, search wise, no one was really looking for it, but her audience was, like they would love those gifts. Mm-hmm. So just because they don't find it on Google, they're never going, like no one's ever going to find this again. Like, no, like set a reminder to, okay, share this post in a newsletter, share, something from this post in Instagram. So for those kind of like not really evergreen or not really SEO posts, make sure that they don't just die a death in your blog. Like set reminders to go back and refresh it and share it again, or just literally share the same article exactly as it is. Sometimes it's fine, it doesn't need updated. But yeah, just so like it doesn't just go missing in the cobwebs of your blog.
Right. Perfect. Awesome, Kerry. Well, this has been great. Where should people find you?
So my website is God Save the SERP. So SERP stands for Search Engine Results Page. So yeah, that's my website, God Save the SERP. I'm on Instagram under that handle, or on LinkedIn if you want to find me. It's Kerry Campion, Kerry, and Campion is just champion without the H. And I have a free 5-day keyword research course if people are interested in that, which shows you how to do keyword research without spending $140 a month on SEMrush or Ahrefs. So yeah, that's why people enjoy it. they realize they don't have to spend a fortune just to do keyword research.
Awesome. Cool. And you said you have a course, right? So what's that about? Who's it for?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I have a SEO copywriting course for copywriters. So yeah, it's essentially a lot of copywriters kind of struggle with, they kind of want to start doing the SEO strategy. They kind of want to be a content marketer as well as just the person who writes the content. So yeah, it's called SERP Slayer, and it's closed for enrollment right now. But we are we're preparing to launch it again in probably the end of January next year. And yeah, we also have like a community on our Slack channel where we can share leads and just get help with client work. We have like a meeting every month where we do workshops. We workshop our content and talk through any troubles or wins that we're having as well.
All right, cool. And I don't even know when this is going to publish. I'll let you know later. But if the course is not open, you have a wait list or something that people can sign up for? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we call it our VIP list.
Okay.
So yeah. If you go onto the sales page now, you can enter your email and you'll make sure that you're alerted whenever it goes live again. I also have a course called Content Slayer. So it's like a kind of mini version, which is kind of for everyone. So it's about creating content. We kind of divide it into these pillars: content to build links, content that generates sales, content, or to get found in search. And yeah, so that's also available, Content Slayer, and that's available to buy all the time.
Perfect. All right, we'll link up for all the stuff so people can find it. And thanks again, Kerry.
Thanks for having me. It's been really fun.